To continue our Trae coverage right now, let's bring in an expert on the matter. Former Atlanta Hawks Vice President of Basketball Operations, now NBA on NBC Insider, and the man that knows everything about basketball, Mr. Grant Liftman. Grant, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I appreciate being here. It's going to be fun.
You needed a Los Angeles size intro is what I was trying to do. But what was your initial reaction to the Trae trade news when you heard that this was finally happening? He was shipping out of Atlanta for the first time in 7.5 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a monumental moment, obviously, for Atlanta sports, and he's just been a figurehead of everything Hawks, right, for that many years. But to be fair, the writing has been on the wall, especially since the offseason when he was not extended, and there really was no discussion of extending him. And it really was one of those question marks of, could he make it work with the new era of basketball that's happening, with the players they acquired? Could he be part of that next cycle of Hawks basketball? And, to be fair to him, also, like, the injury didn't help anything, right? Missing time, so he wasn't able to assimilate as much into the group. But at the same time, when he was out there, you could just tell it didn't mesh. It wasn't clicking the right way. And so, was I surprised? No. But is it still just a shocking development? Yeah. No matter what, with Trae Young not being part of the Atlanta Hawks, it's shocking.
Yeah, it's shocking when your franchise player moves on, for sure. That's the biggest thing that we're trying to wrap our heads around is what's next for the Hawks? What do you think a move like this actually signals for the future of that organization?
Yeah, again, everything's cyclical in the NBA, right? Your roster turnover, et cetera. So you had the Bud team with Kyle Korver and Al Horford and Paul Millsap and that whole squad, right? And then there was a turnover and Trae became the next cycle. That was his era. And really what you're seeing right now is a cycle to the next team. The conversation was, can Trae be part of that next cycle? And it didn't seem like that was determined to be a positive. So looking forward now is, what do you build around the team that's already there? Jaylen Johnson's having an all-star type year. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's played great. Dyson Daniels now under contract. You have Onyeka under contract and Zachary Rissache, who is the first overall pick. So you have a lot of bones that are really good for the team. So what do you need to add to keep on getting better? And really it comes down to, without Trae, there is no primary playmaker. Right now, they have a lot of secondary great playmakers, Jaylen Johnson and Dyson. These guys can really, if a second unit, a ball in their hands, but really it's a primary guy, a guy that really set the offense, get it going, a guy who can bring up the ball up the court without any fears of turnovers in the backcourt, a guy who can create for himself a little bit. That would be something that they should get. But it's hard, right? You have to find the right guy. You can't just pick anyone. And then also just some rim defense. They were hoping Kristaps Porzingis this year was going to be that for them. It has not worked out so far for a multitude of reasons. So really, can they bring in somebody that solidifies that defense? Because this team has a chance to be a really good defensive team with their point attack defense and their wing defense.
Grant, you said something really interesting here, because a lot of people look at Jaylen Johnson and they think that now he's the number one. He is the future. He is the face. He is everything that is Atlanta Hawks. Why do you think they also need someone else in addition to that?
Jaylen Johnson is one of these guys that can do it all, right? He can rebound, he can assist, he can score. He has so many different facets to his game. But sometimes the Swiss Army knife isn't your primary guy. He's a guy that can, put the team on his back every now and then and lead them. But he actually plays off of people a lot of times. That's one of his greatest strengths, is he can run in transition. The ball's fed to him. He can, leap to the rim and you get a guy to feed him. So really at the end of the day, you still need somebody that can just have the ball in his hands and create. And it's not as much what we're talking about with Trae Young, where it was like he dominated the ball, but you need someone to initiate offense, who can get into the paint, drive, and initiate. That helps somebody like Jaylen do his job, creates spacing, creates a cycle of movement that the offense needs to really to get going. And that's going to be the biggest question mark, is, can this offense find the rhythm it needs without Trae?
Clearly, there are a lot of question marks moving forward for this team, and a group that's trying to come together. There's a lot of new pieces already in place for this Hawks team, but moving forward, they're going to have more to figure out for sure. Let's go back to Trae for a second. You've been here. You lived in Atlanta. You are part of that front office. He is a very polarizing player. You either love him or you weren't sad to see him go. How should Hawks fans remember him? Because he really was the face of this franchise for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't want to speak for every Hawks fan, but I think his entertainment value and the way he really created a new era of Hawks basketball, because that should be admired and should be looked upon in a very fond way, because if you really think about it, there's a lot of teams that go through a great era, and I keep on referring back to those Bud years, and those are really good Hawks basketball. And there's a lot of times when you move on from that, it takes a very long time for a team to reshuffle and get anywhere near a title. And the fact that Trae Young so quickly was able to get that team to an Eastern Conference Finals, that's admirable. And that's something that should just always be cherished, because that was a very special run the team went through. But the cycle started burning out pretty quickly after that. And it wasn't all his fault, right? There was a lot of players that needed to be kind of exchanged and reconfigured. So I would say, obviously, it's a disappointing end to the era, and it kind of stalled out a little bit. But at the end of the day, Trae Young means so much to Atlanta basketball, to just the way the city really embraced the Hawks again. And all of these players that are there right now have learned and have gotten some great experience by playing with him. So, I mean, I'm rooting for him. I really want him to succeed wherever he goes. Obviously, he's in Washington. If he stays there, that's awesome. Because this is really the second half of his career. He's still young, right? Trae is still young. But, at the end of the day, no, I'm definitely rooting for the guy.
Yeah, you mentioned something really fun that Trae was a part of. It's that Eastern Conference Finals run back in 2021. I was flying back and forth between here and Milwaukee, and it was just unbelievable. I'll always remember it. I know everybody will too. And, a lot of people think, had Trae not rolled his ankle, what would have happened? They potentially would have gone to a championship. It is possible, although you don't really want to speculate. But when you mention the Eastern Conference Finals run, when that happens for an organization, the expectation is to get back there within the near future. That's what fans want, obviously. What do you feel like has to happen for the Hawks to start to become contenders in that light?
Definitely some of it is just the roster construction of what I was talking about before, with the primary playmaker, some rim defense. But these are young players. They just need to keep growing, right? Their games need to keep expanding. Zachary Rissache is still so young, and you see moments of just these flashes of what we expected of him when we drafted him. I have high expectations for him. I think he can be a great player. Jaylen Johnson burst onto the scene this year, but last year he was starting to build towards that before he got hurt. Right, Dyson Daniels has taken leaps and bounds to most improved player of the year type work, and you see these growth patterns, and that is what's important, right? Keep on growing. So when you do make additions, and this is what the Trae trade really did, was create flexibility so that the team can search out and seek out the right players, pay them, get them on the team, because this new apron system, this new collective bargaining agreement makes it hard to do any traditional building of like, oh, I like that player, I'm just going to go get him. It doesn't really work like that anymore. So how do you build your roster? They're doing it the right way. You build from within, you build with young guys. And I know, I'm sure people have talked about it, that there's a certain draft pick coming up that they potentially have they have it, but we don't know how it'll be, from the Pelicans or Bucks, that has a chance to be a real franchise builder. So I'm excited for the team. I think there's a lot of good things to come, but sometimes you have to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. And for this, it was unfortunately the step back of, hey, Trae, we need to move on. We need to make this separation happen so we can all pick up the pieces and start again. And that's what's happening.
Basically, the fans need to err on the side of patience, which is always hard for fans to do, for sure. Let's wrap things up with Trae really quickly. He goes to the Washington Wizards, and a lot of people are looking at this move and saying, what the heck? Why does this make sense? Why do you think Trae going to Washington ultimately made sense at this moment in time?
From the Washington perspective, it makes sense because for them, they actually, and this is a funny part of the CBA that people don't really know as much, you actually have to hit a salary floor. And the team didn't have enough contracts going into next year because CJ McCollum, who the Hawks acquired, was going to be an expiring contract. So they could have either re-signed CJ to a big number, they could have tried to find somebody to come and pay them, or what you can do is just find the guy right now, Trae Young, try to revitalize his career, try to see if he can either build with you or maybe even just make him into more of an asset so another team comes get him. All those things help the Washington Wizards moving forward. They also, in the process, Corey Kispert, who came over to the Hawks, some may say that maybe he is a good player that fits with the Hawks, but also his contract didn't necessarily vibe with whatever the Washington Wizards are doing. And I'm not sure if it even fits exactly what the Hawks are doing, to be honest with you. He's a good player, but that money is significant over the next few years. So I believe Washington was trying to get off that contract instead of taking an asset back from the Hawks. They manipulated really a lot of it is just salaries and how they're going about the CBA's construction. But at the end of the day, also, what a cool risk to take is just getting Trae Young to be with your team and try to, I don't know, play some inspirational basketball.
It's going to be weird to see him in a Wizards uniform. We got to get used to that. But they do come to State Farm Arena in February, so hopefully Trae gets that standing ovation that he so rightfully deserves. Grant, thank you so much. Appreciate your insight as always.
Thanks for having me.